You've been hearing us talk about imperial yeast for a while now, and that's because we absolutely love the stuff. With 200 billion cells in each pitch-right pouch, we rarely need to make starters these days. While originally based out of Portland, Oregon, imperial yeast has expanded to the East Coast, meaning even more people have access to their incredible lineup of yeast, including popular strains like A07 Flagship, A38 Juice, A09 Pub, and a Brulosophy favorite, L17 Harvest. So good. Whether you brew at home or on the commercial scale, imperial yeast has what you need to make the best beer possible. You can check out all of their available strains and start your planning at imperialyeast.com. Since becoming a contributor of Brulosophy, Will Lovell has published nearly 50 articles from our Experiment, the Hop Chronicles, Brew It Yourself, and Short and Shoddy series. He's also co-hosted many episodes of the Brulosophy podcast, and he maintains a position on the leadership board of the Brew Club. Needless to say, Brulosophy is what it is today, in large part because of Will's dedication, and we are beyond thrilled to have him on our team. A few months ago, Will was yet again the guest for our monthly live Q&A sessions that we offer to patrons of Brulosophy. He hung out for over an hour, answering questions and sharing some of his experiences related to much more than just beer. If you're a regular listener of this show, you know he dabbles in other hobbies as well, like barbecue, bread making, and even hunting. Well, this week we're sharing that session with all of you, not only as a way for listeners to get to know Will a little bit better, but also to give you an idea of what you get by throwing just $3 per month our way. If you are unfamiliar with Patreon, it is a really neat platform that frankly allows us to keep bringing you this podcast every week. Those people who appreciate what we're doing enough to make a small monthly pledge are known as patrons, and in return for their support, we give them a little something extra as a way to say thanks. You can learn all about the various rewards we offer patrons over at patreon.com/Brulosophy. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, except for to say that our two most popular levels of support are the $3 tier, which gets you into these monthly live Q&A sessions with people in the brewing world, as well as our $5 tier that gets you a discount at Yakima Valley Hops as well. Past Q&A guests have included folks like Russian River's Vinny Chilurzo, the Alchemist John Kimmich, and a bunch of homebrewing all-stars like John Palmer and Gordon Strong. Just last week, we had Dr. Scott LaFontaine on to talk about the work he's doing, and we are currently working on filling the calendar for 2025. Another perk of being a patron is that we ask them who they want as guests for these Q&A sessions, and we do our best to get those people booked. As for the Yakima Valley Hops discount, they are always worth at least $5. For example, this month, patrons got 15% off all of the fresh 2024 Australian hops, including lauded varieties like Galaxy and Vic Secrets. Pretty good deal if you ask me. Again, if you're at all interested in learning more about how you can be rewarded for helping us to continue doing what we do, head over to patreon.com/Brulosophy. Another really easy way to help us out is by using the links found at brulosophy.com/support. We are affiliated with most of the places people buy brewing stuff online, including Amazon, More Beer, and Great Fermentations. When you use those links, which you can also bookmark for future use, we get a very small commission that does help us out, helps us to cover production costs. And finally, if you wouldn't mind letting us know what you think about this show by leaving a rating and review in Apple Podcast or wherever it is you listen to podcasts that allows you to leave those reviews, we really would appreciate that as well. On top of giving us an idea of what listeners think of how we're doing, which we absolutely take to heart, those reviews also make it easier for people who may not have heard of us yet to find us. All right, feedback is brought to you by Clawhammer Supply, who are known for their incredible all-in-one electric brewing systems. I've brewed on both their 120 and 240 volt systems, and I'm telling you, these things are awesome, efficient, easy to use with a relatively small footprint. You're not going to be disappointed with one of these units. Plus, the guys behind the company run an amazing YouTube channel, which you can find by searching YouTube for Clawhammer Supply. If you're in the market for electric brewing gear, make sure to check out what Clawhammer Supply has to offer at clawhammersupply.com. And don't forget to let them know Brulosophy sent you when you're checking out. That's clawhammersupply.com. Alrighty, listener Sarah Grisham wrote in with some feedback we've gotten a handful of times over the last few years, and I feel is appropriate given the season we're currently in. Sarah said, my boyfriend Seth started homebrewing a few years ago and has been a fan of Brulosophy from the beginning. He's learned a lot from you guys, and it shows in the quality of his beer, which is pretty much all we drink when we're at home nowadays. First off, I think that's pretty rad, Sarah. So she goes on to say, he reads every article, listens to every podcast, watches every video on YouTube, and he supports you guys on Patreon, but he still wants more. When I asked him for some Christmas gift ideas last week, he gave me a list that included, quote, anything from Brewlosophy. When I checked your website, I couldn't find anything, and that's why I'm emailing. Do you guys have stuff like t-shirts, hats, or beer glasses for sale? If so, where can I find it? So like I said, this is just one of the many emails we've received asking about Brewlosophy merch over the last few years. Unfortunately, we've still yet to come up with a creative solution for adding anything other than what's currently available on Amazon, which is just t-shirts. I've spent a decent amount of time looking into other options, and every time I think I've found something that'll work, it just ends up falling through. I know there's a demand for things like hats, glasses, and such. I just can't seem to find a place that offers all of that in one place in a format that I'm capable of managing on my own. So Sarah and everyone else who has reached out about this, I do apologize for the lack of options. But if you happen to live in the United States, you can get a variety of Brewlosophy t-shirt designs on Amazon, which we link to at the bottom of every article. One thing to keep in mind, for whatever reason, our stuff gets ripped off all the time on Amazon. As soon as we get one crook taken down, another 3 seem to pop up. So please just make sure if you're buying anything on Amazon that you only purchase the t-shirts that have the brand listed specifically as Brewlosophy. Otherwise, your purchase is not going to support us, but probably somebody in some other country who's just stealing our brand. I know that's probably not the answer everybody wanted to hear, but it's where we're at currently. So, if someone listening is keen on this kind of stuff and isn't out to swindle us, please do hit me up. I'm certainly open to whatever ideas you might have to offer. Thank you so much for the email, Sarah. If you have show feedback, you could send it to feedback@brewlosophy.com or drop us a note on social media. Please, if you haven't already, go check out our YouTube channel, The Brewlosophy Show. Host Martin Keene has put so much time and effort into this project, and he's got some really cool stuff in store for the future that we are confident everyone listening to this podcast will love. You can find it by going to youtube.com/@thebrewlosophy show or simply searching YouTube for Brewlosophy. Make sure you subscribe so you're notified when new episodes drop. Alrighty, we'll be back with Will's live Q&A session with patrons of Brewlosophy right after this break. Have you ever thought about adding a port to your kettle but held off because you didn't feel like drilling into your gear or sending it off to have someone else do it? From the makers of the world's fastest counterflow chiller, the Exchillerator, comes the Hangover, the easiest way to add extra ports to your kettle as well as countless other options. Mount a faucet to your keg for easy portable pouring. Set up the perfect whirlpool arm. Hold a heating element in place. All of this and so much more without permanently modifying your gear. Manufactured right here in the United States, the Hangover offers brewers too many convenient solutions to list here. So head over to Exchillerator.com today to see what the Hangover can do for you. Level up your brewing game with one of the coolest brewing gadgets on the market today, the Easy Dens and Smart Rev Combo by Anton Parr. These smart tools provide precise gravity measurements and fermentation tracking with minimal sample volume, and it's all synced to your smartphone via the Brewmeister app. Brewlosophy's Martin Keene loves using the Easy Dens as it makes precise measurements high-tech, hassle-free, and honestly really cool. Visit EasyDens.com today and use code BREW15 for 15% off. That's BRU15 to get 15% off your order.
Black Friday week is here, and so are amazing deals at Amazon. You'll save so much on early holiday gifts for the kitchen, like appliances and cookware. You'll have money left over for an ice cream scoop that's perfect for serving up dessert, or a perfectly shaped snowball. Think fast! Gotcha! Or that cutlery set, so you can carve up the turkey with surgical precision. Oh, what fun it is to save. Black Friday week is here with deals up to 35% off.
Got great ideas, but no idea how to build a website? Get Bluehost. Their AI design tool creates high-quality WordPress sites super fast. Whether you're a blogger, influencer, or launching a side hustle, Bluehost helps boost your growth with built-in marketing and e-commerce tools. Upgrade to cloud and get 100% uptime and 24/7 security to stay online all the time. Why wait? You've got the vision. Make it real. Visit Bluehost.com to get started.
I'm trying to get reacquainted with this webpage because it's a little bit crazy looking from our side of things when we go live. And I haven't done this in a while, so trying to get a little bit reacquainted. So anyways, throw up comments, anything you want me to talk about. We'll try to get real weird of it. If you want to talk about why my office is such a train wreck, it won't be much fun for people that are going to listen to audio only later, but it could be a lot of fun for, two when you count me. Awesome. It could be a lot of fun for, hey, it's Dave. Could be a lot of fun to ask why my office is such a mess. Not so much for the podcast listeners later on, but off right now. Just to give you a heads up, I'm a little bit hungover. A local brewery had a wonderful anniversary party, and I went safely. I took a lift there, and then I got my wife to pick me up to go home, and so I safely went there and back as a very responsible adult. It was pretty awesome. Had a really great time. If you're wondering why I have two microphones, for those of you that are watching this on film, this one's actually probably doing the live casts, assuming you guys can hear me. And then this one is actually, it's our fun little microphone we use for Brulosophy podcast stuff. And so it's got an SD card. I think it's a H1N Zoom handy receiver mic, and so we just kind of talk really deep and docile into that, and then Marshall makes us sound like magic on the other end, and he syncs all the audio up. So way to go, Marshall, for making us sound like magic. Yeah, Dave, so what brewery? I went to Roadmap Brewing here in San Antonio. It's a local brewery. It's like a little neighborhood brewery. They don't really distribute. They don't really go anywhere, but it's like one of my favorite breweries. I really love the vibe there. They had some really good beers yesterday. They had a West Coast Pilsner. And so I guess if it's at Roadmap, then we don't have to have Jordan folks officially tell me it's a style anymore. I would see it out in the wild now. We also, they had a wonderful Czech dark lager that Kimberlin brewed alongside with the owner, Dustin. And they do a really good job. They have a lot of good beers, and they do dry hopped lagers incredibly well, which is one of my favorite styles right now, is anything dry hopped lager. And then Dave looks like he's near Bamberg, which is a wonderful place to go visit. So I got not a ton of things to talk about. I got a little bit of list over here just to keep us on track so I don't ramble on and on. Man, I should have shut that closet door behind us, but oh well. Maybe there's a blur video option I can find later if I dig through this, but no, it'll be okay. But yeah, so, football things. So it's Sunday. I'm sure many of you will be, if you're in America anyways, will be watching the football game. American football, that is, not foosball or soccer as we call it here. But, some of you are watching games. In fact, I have like my fantasy team up over here on the side. I like to do fantasy football. I do a survivor pool. I don't do a lot of betting. If people do sports betting, I'm kind of curious to see if anybody does any parlays. Those sound kind of like crazy, but kind of fun, and kind of makes the odds a little bit weird. But yeah, I mostly do a fantasy football team, which is kind of my go-to thing. It's a lot of fun. It's with mostly people that I work with, so that one works out pretty well. I also, Survivor Pool is probably the one I've made the most money off of. It's not very expensive. It's like $20 a team, and you get one loss. So if you're not familiar with Survivor Pools, essentially you can pick one team a week, and then for the entire season, like once you pick that team's done. You can't pick them again. And so generally speaking, we kind of award the longest run without a loss. So if you do get a rebuy, so you can buy back in after your team loses one time. And then the winner gets to take the whole pot. And sometimes it's not a crazy amount, but you get enough people involved in these pools, you can get $1,000 or something at the end of the year. And so, but this year has been a dismal year because most Survivor Pool losses happen in the first 3 weeks. And I've not been immune to that statistic. Week 1 and week 2 has basically killed both of my pick teams in there. And today I picked the Buccaneers to beat the to win. And so far, the Denver Broncos aren't letting me happen that. So that's pretty cool. All right, and with the barbecue questions already. So Scott's asking about brisket temperatures. And he asked me, fat side up, fat side down, wrap with paper or foil. Do you make tallow with a trim fat? Rest for how long in a cooler or oven? So those are pretty great questions. So brisket, I think, it's my personal opinion, I think the temperature is kind of important, but I think like consistency and temperature is almost more important. So I usually will start out around 250 for my brisket. And then once it gets to about 175 or so, that's typically when I'll wrap it. And after I wrap it in typically butcher paper, I have used foil in the past. Foil to me gets it kind of steamy, and you get a little more like pot roasty and everything. I mean, it's a great way to get it really tender because you're steaming that meat inside the foil, but it's also a really great way to get like more kind of pot roasty, like fall apart meat than it is to like get what I want in my brisket. And so I tend to wrap it in paper because that seems to be a butcher paper because it's a nice compromise of breathability. And for those of you wondering about butcher paper, it's not the kind with a wax line. It's like unlined, unwaxed butcher paper. And I'll typically even, I have like a big tub of Wagyu tallow. And so I typically throw like kind of a big spoonful of that in there with it too, just to kind of give it some extra fat. And it seems to be what some people purport is Aaron Franklin's secret to moistness. As he wraps off his briskets, he throws in some tallow. So I don't know. We'll have to see if that makes a difference or not. But I've been doing it lately just to do it. And also, you can order Wagyu tallow off of Amazon. It comes in a big tub. It's really crazy. But it's only like $15 or something for a big tub of Wagyu tallow. So I like to buy a big tub of Wagyu tallow. I'll cook steaks in it, but so we'll throw it into my wrapped brisket for a little while. And then I do not make tallow with the trim fat because I'm too lazy to do that, although you totally could. And then typically for resting it, I will generally have my brisket done hours ahead of when I need to have it. I'm not one of those people. I would rather be looking at it than waiting on it, as they say. And so I'm one of those people that I will get up really, really early just to make sure that my brisket is going to get done on time. And so generally speaking, I'm done 3 hours before the event. And so I will just keep it wrapped in that butcher paper. And then I have some nice coolers that I will go put it in. And it will basically just sit in there, and I can keep a thermometer on it. And if you put like kind of the secret too is, coolers, they'll keep the hot stuff hot and the cold stuff cold. So you just get some hot water from like a tea kettle or something, and I'll dump some boiling hot water in there and just kind of let it heat up the cooler a little bit, and then I'll dump it out. And then put the brisket in there with like some towels and stuff around it to kind of take up some of that space, and that'll keep it warm for several hours. And so that's kind of what I do. So rest, I would probably let it rest for at least an hour. But generally speaking, mine are resting for way longer than that, just by the nature of how proactive I am with cooking. So, and then I don't think, no other secret sauce really. It's just a 50-50 salt pepper blend. And I like to trim them down pretty good, get them a little more aerodynamic. And then as far as fat side up or down, I don't know if I answered that question. I typically do fat side up. I am wondering though, and I have been wanting to kind of play with it because I use a Kamado style smoker. And so I have been curious if I would flip the fat side down, if that would help kind of protect the bottom and maybe get that fat to render out a little faster or a little more complete. I don't know. I've been kind of wanting to play with it on like the Kamados. If you're using like a horizontal smoker like they do in lots of parts of Texas, it makes sense to have the fat on top because you get kind of that convection going over the top of it. So it'd be really interesting. David's saying that he's been looking forward to barbecue talk. I've never been overseas, but I've watched tons of videos about Texas barbecue. As you have been to Germany, is there really a huge difference from German barbecue to Texas? I feel also like the meat you have available is vastly different. I would say that the even just the steaks, I don't know, at least in the part of Germany I was in, you could get like Rumsteak or something. I didn't see anything smoked like we do in Texas, at least not smoked in the way that Texas-style meats are smoked. Most of the Germans that I saw that were cooking over fire were just grilling things, and there's nothing wrong with grilling. And I thought, like, again, the sausages there are so amazing. Some of the grilled sausages. I remember there's a grocery store in Germany called Globus, and they would have like this sausage festival for like a month. You'd have like different sausages of around the world. I think they did it around the World Cup one year, and so you could get like this crazy Brazilian spiral sausage that they made along with traditional German wurst and some other things. And it was so good. But I had some of my German neighbors over one time when I smoked a brisket, and the comment was, "Das ist gut Fleisch." And so I took that as a very good compliment coming from our neighbors. So it's pretty good. But it's, again, German, it's kind of like German sausage versus what we call German sausage in Texas. Like, they're both really good. They're both kind of different though. And they're different in the best possible ways. So probably seen it, but Barbecue Showdown on Netflix was so much fun. Yet mouth-watering stay time. We couldn't watch it without eating something most of the time. I really like that competition. I think it's a really, really cool one that, they get these people from all around, the country to go out there and compete with barbecue. It was really interesting because one of the girls you could tell was more professionally trained because her sides were like on point bomb. And then some of her other stuff was a little less so. But I think she's the one that won it. And she was a little more classically trained chef this last go around. But it was kind of cool watching her. And then there was one gal on there from Houston that I think made it all the way up until the final round. She didn't quite make the finals. And you could tell that she really knew her way around beef. And she did things in a very consistent way with how I would have done them. So it's pretty cool to watch that too, just to kind of confirm, kind of what you're doing and seeing it up on TV and doing some of that stuff. Yeah. I haven't watched Mad Scientist Barbecue, Brad, but he's saying Mad Scientist Barbecue on YouTube does a brisket with Wagyu based on Aaron Franklin. Yep, I haven't actually seen that one, but I do I do think that that's not a bad way to go, because part of what you're wrapping it for is keeping moisture in, and that moisture, the keeping that in and keeping it, slightly steaming the beer. Obviously, some air can get steaming the meat, but some of that air can get through. Is you're just trying to make it kind of cook a little bit faster. And then I also think it's nice to have it wrapped in something when it comes off, because then you don't have to wrap it in something when it comes off. You can just put it straight in the cooler or whatever you want to do. Don't know if you remember me answering a question about resouring a seltzer with Good Belly or not, but I went ahead and did it, and it soured great. You'll see how it tastes after carbs up. That's pretty cool. I remember reading a comment that you made. Basically, he was asking about a beer that he wanted to sour using a seltzer that he wanted to sour using Good Belly after fermentation was basically done, and I think I was one of the naysayers, actually. I said just add some lactic acid, but part of that is because I'm super lazy. I truly am a lazy brewer. And so far we're doing really well. We're asking about seltzers and barbecue. I haven't seen anything here about a certain beverage that Brewlosophy is known for talking about, which is pretty awesome for a Patreon discussion. So I'm glad that worked. I think that's pretty cool. I'm also too lazy to make seltzer though. I do the vodka soda and then just add the flavoring to it and carbonate it in my keg. So I'm pretty lazy about all that. So just a point of reference. I think the only reason people do seltzer the way they do seltzer, at least in the industry, is because of licensing. And I don't have to adhere to the same licenses that people that are selling this stuff adhere to, because I'm not a professional brewer and I'm not selling it. So I can just go make vodka soda, make a whole keg of it, and then I've done it where you just have the flavors on the side, so you can just flavor it with whatever you want. I've done it where I flavored the whole keg. It just really depends on what kind of mood I'm in. And then I guess if I wanted it to be a little sour, I'd probably add just a touch of lactic acid to my vodka soda. Or I guess you could do phosphoric acid or citric acid, but I'd probably just add acid to it. There's also a guy, so back to barbecue, Dave's saying there's also a guy in Houston, I think, who was doing Egyptian Texas barbecue fusion. He also looks like to make it in the final round of the show. That stuff looks so delicious. I think it's called KG Barbecue on Insta. Have you ever been there? So I believe that guy's actually out of Austin. And I've actually seen him featured in some other magazines and some other places. And so I have not had a chance to go, and Austin's only a couple hours away, so I probably need to go up there. I think it would be really, really cool just to go check out his stuff, because it looked really delicious. And I love Middle Eastern food. And so I think the fusion would be a really good marriage. So that would be exciting. I need to go check out his stuff and see if I can get up there to his food truck. Brad, sorry to hear the Seltzer Fest you were having in town got canceled. So that's a bummer that you went all the trouble to make a hard seltzer, and then they canceled the fest that you were making it for. That's a bummer. So cool. Keep all the questions coming, guys and gals. Again, happy to talk about barbecue. Happy to talk about anything. It is September, and I do think that September is a great time to talk about festivals. And I have argued that September, if you're going to pick a month to go to Europe, I've argued that September is probably the best month of all time to go to Europe, because one, it's shoulder season, so you're not having to deal with annoying Americans like me shoulder to shoulder with you all the time. Like, you can kind of feel like you have your own little unique European experience, and that's pretty cool. That way there's fewer of us American tourists running around. So shoulder season is a great time to go. The weather in September is not bad. The days haven't gotten so short that it's like crazy dark, crazy early. But the real thing is that there are some amazing fests in September. And just to go through a few of my favorite festivals, mostly in Germany and Belgium, but I think top of the list, since we were talking about sausage a little bit earlier, is the Verstmarkt in Bad Dürkheim. And it is actually Europe's largest wine festival, and it's a ton of fun to go to. It's just like, I don't know how Verstmarkt, which literally means sausage market, became a wine festival. That's got to be a really cool story that I should go Google somewhere upon a time. But it's really cool festival. It's really big. They have fun Ferris wheels. It's in the middle of this, so it's the Rhineland Pfalz. So it's in the Pfalz, and it's in the wine portion of the Pfalz. I guess the Pfalz is designed into two sections. There's a Kartoffelpfalz, which is where they grow most of the potatoes, and then there's a Weinpfalz where they grow all the wine and have all the vineyards. And so you go over there, and you're in the middle of all these vineyards in the city of Bad Dürkheim, and you walk around, and they have like half-liter mugs of wine that you order. And so, I mean, they look like shaker pints almost, but they're kind of dimpled, and they're really cool, and they're all sponsored by different things. And you can go around and you kind of pay a fund or a deposit on your glass, and you walk around with it. Then you get the next one, and you trade your glasses out, and you can just keep swapping out with your font the whole day. And then I highly recommend ordering Weinschorle, because if you order just wine, they literally will serve you a half liter of wine, which is darn near a whole bottle of wine. And that's a lot of wine. It's for half a liter. But if you do a Weinschorle, they'll mix it with sparkling water. And so if you get like a dry, so this dry is trocken, halbtrocken means semi-dry, and then süße is sweet. And so, but if you get the dry Riesling with the sparkling water, it does have kind of like a really nice, refreshing tint to it. In fact, I really like going to that one. The other one that I've been to, and it actually happened last weekend, is Brugge Beer Fest up in, I guess if you speak Flemish, it's Brugge. If you speak French, it's Bruges. But Bruges is one of my favorite places on planet Earth. And then once a year they have their beer fest, and it's more like kind of what I see like more American beer fests, where you like have the tickets or the tokens or whatever, and you walk around and they fill your little glass and you get to sample a whole bunch of beer. But the beer in Belgium is so unique and wonderful, and so you could do that somewhere in the middle of September, and it would be a really great time just to go walk around the city of Bruges and then spend a couple of days doing their Brugge Beer Fest. And then, oh, Dave, thank you. Saying my pronunciations are really good. If you want me to talk about beer or hunting or food in German, I get pretty good. If you want me to go beyond that, it's not so great. I think the other place. So Dave is also pointing out there's a really cool thing called Bockbieranstich. I'm probably butchered that one, but it's most of the 400 Franconian brewers host their own fest for Bock beer, and I think I have actually heard of that one. I just think I ever made to it, but I would love to go to a Bock beer festival, because that would be really, really fun. I think a really underrated one that nobody talks about, it's the second largest beer fest in Germany, is Volksfest in Stuttgart, and it starts around the last weekend or so of September. So you could hit that, but it's the second largest one, and it's kind of cool because it's less popular than the one that happens in Munich every year. But to me, and so it's a little less crowded as far as tourists and things go, but it's still a really fun vibe. They still have tents. They're not quite as big as the tents in Munich, but they are quite nice tents. You can still buy liter placards of beer everywhere. Oh, look at me talking about beer on the beer show. Man, I told myself I wouldn't do this. And then, of course, in about the middle of September is when Oktoberfest starts, and so you can go to Munich and go to Oktoberfest, and that's obviously a really fun one to go to. But I still feel like September is one of the best months for traveling for fests in Europe. If you don't want to go in September, obviously Christmas time is a great time because you go to the Christmas markets. You can drink all the all the Glühwein that your body can handle. I got really hungover drinking Glühwein one time, so it's not really my favorite drink. Yeah, Dave's like, at Oktoberfest you nowadays pay €15.30 for a Mass, which Mass means liter, and so hence he does not like to go there. And yeah, $15.30 for Mass beer is really not cheap. It was slightly less expensive when I went, but it's a cool experience nonetheless. But if you want to blow some money on some liters, but yeah, I think Volksfest is like a really cool way to go, and so I really do like that. Okay, so Brad asked another barbecue question now that I'm done diatribing on why September's a great month. Oh yeah, and spring in Germany, you get your Frühlingsfest, and usually most towns have some kind of spring festival. Frühling just means spring, and so the Frühlingsfest are really fun. I'm trying to convince one of the kind of German-oriented breweries here in town to do a Frühlingsfest because I kind of enjoyed some of the Frühlingsfests more so than, again, some of the fall festivals, because again, they were less crowded and less popular. I know Stuttgart had a really nice Frühlingsfest that I just kind of lucked into one year. And Nick says, have you known anyone to use a gravity-fed charcoal smoker? Thinking about upgrading from a propane smoker to that. Seems like the advantages of a pellet smoker, but with the charcoal flavor. I have never used a gravity-fed charcoal smoker. It's not something I've really looked into. I've seen a few... I guess they're kind of like pellet smokers, but they had discs, and the discs would just like gravity feed down into like a little thing, and then you could burn through them. I've never actually seen a gravity fed charcoal one, so that's something I would be curious to do some research on because that sounds kind of cool. Brad also says they were deployed to Thailand one year, and a German guy had moved there and opened a big German restaurant, had amazing sausages and a really great homemade German mustard. Yeah, I think it's really interesting kind of what we think German mustard is versus the mustards I had in Germany. I don't know. I feel like here we kind of go over the top with some of the flavors we associate, like sauerkraut as well. But yeah, they definitely know how to make some amazing sausages. Texas, we have kind of our own smoked sausage thing that we do where we take similarly to German made sausages and then we smoke them. I'm not going to say it's better than German sausage. It's just different. It's still really good. It's just different. And a lot of them are kind of like German inspired, but they're like very many generations removed from the first generation that started it. Like, Opus sausage in Fredericksburg, Texas makes some really good sausages. But yeah, and then I think there's a place down in so I know kind of we live in the area of Texas that's known for having really great German food. Again, I think our problem is that we are very many generations removed from the Germans that started all these restaurants. And so it's kind of like, you go to a place to get schnitzel and they make a really good fried pork chop, but it's not exactly schnitzel. It's kind of been my impression. But there's a place, and I'm trying to remember the name of it, that I went to down in it was down in McAllen, and I'm trying to remember the name of it. It was started with an S, but it was made by somebody that was just from Wiesbaden, and it's like first generation. And so a lot of the recipes were very authentic. They even had like a Schweinehaxe, which was like one of my favorite German foods of all time. It's just a big old like pig knuckle where they keep the skin on it, and then they'll get it all crispy. And so the outside is like really crunchy skin, like a chicharron, and then the inside is really like fall off the bone meat. And so it's one of my favorite things ever. Yep. Actually, David, the brewery I talk about already brews a Maibach. I do love a good Maibach. They already brew one in the spring. So, if they want to serve me Maibach in May or whenever, that would be pretty amazing stuff. And apparently Dave also agrees that Glühwein is evil stuff. You can get it with a shot of liquor. Oh yeah, you can get really hammered off Glühwein really fast, and that stuff, like, it just, like, the next morning you wake up with a headache and this like sickly sweet aftertaste in your mouth, and it really just, like, it stays with you for half the day. And so every time I've ever had Glühwein since, and we've made I think in Texas we call it Wassail or something. It's really interesting. I don't know if Glühwein and Wassail are two different things, but it's really kind of the same thing with the mulled wine. Even when I have it, like, it just, like, I just keep shaking my head and get the jitters because it kind of gives me some weird reflexes. So Dave asked a really good question about Texas chili, and yes, Texas chili is without beans. I'm not really sure why it's such a thing without beans. I don't mind having beans in my chili. However, I do not call it Texas chili. I just call it chili. So one of the better recipes I have for Texas chili is one where I actually use a pressure cooker, and I'll actually add in, like, tortilla chips and some other stuff. I stole it from somebody. If I find the recipe, Dave, I'll shoot it your way. I've got your information, but I use, like, I like to use venison. I have a lot. I like to go hunting and do things like that, and so I usually have quite a bit of venison hanging out for most of the year. So I'll take, like, venison stew meat, a couple pounds, throw it in, sear it on all sides, and then I'll add basically a beer, usually something cheap like Miller Lite, a 16-ounce jar of salsa, some adobo pepper, some of the canned adobo peppers in adobo sauce, and so I'll add a couple of those adobo peppers and then some adobo sauce. And then I think there's cumin and a few other ingredients that I probably not remember, garlic powder, onion powder, some other things I'm probably not remembering off the top of my head. And then I'll pressure cook that sucker with some, like, I throw like a couple handfuls of tortilla chips in there, which kind of creates like a thick, almost masa after you pressure cook it down, and it's really really good. I really, really enjoy it. So I, but that, again, that's probably as close as I have to Texas chili, and everybody has different takes on Texas chili. What's funny though is we have a speaking of chili and festivals, I can kind of go through it all, but there's a chili fest in Snook, Texas every year, and it's supposed to be a chili competition. But it's funny because it's really not a chili competition. It's just an excuse for a bunch of people to get in a field, set up tents, and drink a lot. And so it's really just like a drinking something. It's like a drink. So the chili teams usually put shirts on. I think one of the years I went, it said drinking team with a chili problem. And so that's pretty much what it is. You're a drinking team with a chili problem. I was on a chili team one year when I was in college. I don't even think we made chili. I think we just hung out for the concerts and drank all night. And that was a fun time in college. But you could go to Chili Fest in Snook, and maybe there would be some chili served somewhere that could be Texas chili. Or maybe you would just see a concert and drink a lot of beer. It's kind of up to you. As for the Hellesbach Short and Shoddy, Marshall Schott himself actually published one in the Way Back Machine of 2020, and so you can go look at his one. It actually looks pretty good. He's got some Mecca Grade Pelton Pilsner, Mecca Grade Venora Vienna, and Mecca Grade Munich Malt, and then just Magnum and Tettnang, and then used Imperial Global. And so that seems like a pretty simple Hellesbach recipe to me that he did. We don't tend to repeat short and shotties. I believe our goal is at some point to try to get through all of the BJCP styles, and at our current pace of doing, one a month or so, we'll eventually get there. It's just going to be a hot minute. So that's kind of interesting.
More of Will's live Q&A with patrons of Brewlosophy right after this break. There's no denying that stainless steel is the best material for brewing equipment, and Delta Brewing Systems offers some of the lowest prices on high-quality stainless gear, like the Firm Tank, which in addition to holding 8 gallons or 30 liters of work, comes with a domed lid to even further reduce the chances of a messy blow-off. Plus, it can hold up to 4 psi of pressure for closed transfers. Delta Brewing Systems also has their own line of brew kettles, as well as one of the lowest-priced all-in-one electric brewing systems out there, and their prices are shockingly low. If you're in the market for legit stainless gear that won't break the bank, do yourself a favor and head over to deltabrewingsystems.com today. As every brewer knows, the best beer requires the best hops, which Yakima Valley Hops provides fresh from the source to brewers around the world, carrying everything from classics like Cascade to modern favorites like Galaxy and Mosaic, as well as other ingredients and gear. Yakima Valley Hops has it all. And don't forget to check out their new podcast, The Late Edition, where the YVH crew goes into depth on our favorite plant with industry experts. Head over to YakimaValleyHops.com now to see all they have to offer and subscribe to The Late Edition wherever it is you listen to podcasts.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now, imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and they're all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
State Farm and DJ Dramos from Life as a Gringo know making smarter financial moves today secures your financial freedom for a successful tomorrow.
Tackle these situations in stride and yeah, of course, be annoyed when an unplanned expense comes up, but not let it be something that slows me down, right? And also, as I did with repairing my credit, hiring somebody to do credit repair for me. That was a gift that I gave myself that allowed me to then, get my first apartment, get, my first car under my name, then eventually buy my own home. Like, these are all things that are possible for all of us. We just have to educate ourselves and put in some of the hard work that it takes to unlearn bad practices we might have, inherited from our family, and then also educate ourselves on the things that we don't know. The information that wasn't passed down to us because our parents weren't educated on these things.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. State Farm, proud sponsor of My Cultura Podcast Network.
So we talk about football thingies. We talk about my favorite month to go for festivals in Europe. There was one Christmas market in Trippstadt, which is some smaller village close to Kaiserslautern, which Kaiserslautern's right next to Ramstein Air Base. For those of you that don't know where Kaiserslautern is, you've probably heard of Ramstein, the band, if not Ramstein Air Base. And so Trippstadt would have a Wild market where you would actually walk through the woods. And if you went there at night, it was really cool because you were walking through the woods and you had the fires and different things kind of off in different pockets that you kind of see through the woods. So the Christmas market season is a pretty legit time to go. It's just your days are really short and not everything is open. If you wanted to do a Rhine River cruise, that would not be the time of year to do it. So just up to you. Cool. So let's talk about, I don't see any other questions, but I do have a list of things written down to talk about in case we have nothing there. So we have some neighbors down the street and, they like to do game nights, and they're really into some really hardcore games, like Catan and some other stuff that are very intense and take a lot of mental awareness and knowing of rules. And I'm not sure I'm into everything mental awareness and knowing of rules. So some of the games that I like to play, so I part of me wants to cause I am kind of a geeky computer guy. Part of me wants to like Dungeons and Dragons, but let's just face it, it's too long. You have to have somebody set up a whole bunch of time to be a dungeon master. It takes a lot of imagination. There's some cool things that happen in it, and I think it'd be a lot of fun to do sometime, but it's kind of like when you used to play Risk as a kid and you eventually had to quit your game of Risk because it took too many hours, and your mom wanted her table back. So I'm not really into games that take that long. So that's why I kind of lean towards games more like Munchkin, which is it's kind of a similar vibe to Dungeons and Dragons, but you have a board and you have kind of rooms you go into and different classes, and you don't have, and the cards kind of make up the game for you, but you're fighting a monster in every room. And then you have basically cards that give you different equipment, and that's kind of cool. Things that take a lot less preparation that I probably like even more than Munchkins are games like Apples to Apples, or the more adult version like Cards Against Humanity. My wife, who's a veterinarian, won a set of Vets Against Insanity. It was the mom edition. It was really weird. It would ask you questions like, what is the name that you give your vagina. Sorry, Marshall, this is an awkward thing to put on a podcast. But I had to answer that question. And so metaphorically, based off of the cards, I had to give my metaphorical vagina a name, and that was pretty awkward. But it's kind of fun. It ended up being Dr. Jeff, Rocky Mountain veterinarian. So anyways, that was a fun card game. And then I bought a cheap Cards Against Star Wars because I thought like, oh, it's a Star Wars based Cards Against Humanity, but it's like this cheap Chinese knockoff. And so it's really, really crazy because like the English is bad, and I'm not really sure the people that like made this game really watch Star Wars. They might have known some character names. It's actually one of my favorite forms just because everything is so awkward, dirty, and bad, and you're not really sure how much of it is Star Wars, how many is not Star Wars. But my absolute favorite game to play on any given night is called Redneck Life. And Redneck Life is amazing to me because it is the game of life, but it is redneck. So you start off and you're going through the life of a redneck. So you start off and you got to, get your education. So you roll dice to figure out what grade you made it to. I'm not really sure any of the actual things say that you went to college. I think about 9th or 10th grade is about the highest that you go in Redneck Life, apparently. Apparently it's known for this board game not to finish high school even. And then they have different cars, which are kind of fun. There's like a golf cart that's got a number 3 painted on it, and the name of the car is Dale Earnhardt, which is awesome. You can get El Caminos. And at any given time, like you have your youngins that you'll get. So you have your kids that you have. And so you have to have at least a sum of cars. So like if you get the donkey, it only holds like two kids. Dave, you can get it on Amazon. It's amazing. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon. You might have to go to the UK version or the American version, but it gets on Amazon. But if you get a donkey, like it only holds like 2 people. But somehow if you get an El Camino, which literally only has 3 seatbelts, it will somehow hold like 8 kids or something in your El Camino, because I guess it's cool in Redneck Life to throw all your kids in the back. And so it's a really amazing game in that sense. I think the game within the game every time is my wife always tries to steal Dale Earnhardt from me, because I almost always get Dale Earnhardt and it almost gets trashed or stolen or something. And then eventually, like, you go a couple of rounds, like you don't even get a job or an income to start off with. And so you immediately like land on spaces that cost you money, and you immediately start going into debt. So like when you're buying your first car, like you don't have any money. So you have to just go straight into debt, which is amazing. And so I remember playing with a friend. He's like, man, how do you do this, man? All you do is just go into debt instantly. He's like, yo, bro, it's Redneck Life. That's what Redneck Life's all about. It's just going instantly into debt. It's all good. And so, and then you get your job, and I think, you can be a Bass Pro. There's the Ciggy Shack operator is one of them. So you can sell cigarettes. It just depends. So part of your education determines what level of job you can get. The unfortunate part, there is like some life card that happens where the Ciggy Shack gets run into by a car or something. And so that person just loses their job for the rest of the game. So they have no income after they get to the, collect the paycheck tiles. And then the favorite part is all the youngins. So there's all sorts of weird things to get youngins, like, you meet a girl at a Leonard Skinner concert, gain a youngin, and then you roll for the youngin's name. That's kind of fun. But you get married, and then you get divorced, and you get remarried again. So that's the other fun part of Redneck Life, because I think that's pretty consistent with that. But the goal of the game is to finish with the most teeth. And you'd be surprised how hard it is to finish with the most teeth. I think somehow your debt adds up into losing teeth in the end. So if you have a lot of debt, you lose teeth for debt at the end of it all. If you have extra cash, I think you can buy some teeth back. And then you get crazy life cards that are like, couldn't find a bottle opener, used your mouth, lose a tooth. And so those are kind of like one of my favorite cards to get. It's pretty funny. So yeah, Redneck Life, it's a hoot and a holler. Quelf is another kind of funny, nonsensical game out there that I really enjoy, but it's kind of, it's hard to explain those rules because it's such a random game that really it's just a good thing to be sitting around and drinking with. Dave wants to know, what kind of music do I listen to? He's like, it's like, do you like country? No shame if you do. I freaking love it. So, I like, I guess so. Here in Texas, we have kind of our own brand of country, and we call it red dirt country or Texas country. I guess if you're from Oklahoma, you call it red dirt. If you're from Texas, you call it Texas country. And so there's a lot of kind of red dirt Oklahoma, Texas singer-songwriters that are pretty popular within Texas, Oklahoma, New Mexico, Louisiana. But once you get outside of this area, they're not that they're just not that, popular outside of Texas, and we're cool with that. And so a lot of the older ones that I listened to when I was in college were like Charlie Robinson, Pat Green, and those guys. And I guess Charlie Robinson died a couple of years ago, but some of those guys are still touring around. We just saw Aaron Watson not too long ago here. Robert Earl Keen, I saw him not too long ago. There's a gentleman out of Del Rio named William Beckman that my wife likes to listen to a lot. And then there's some local guys that I kind of follow, like Gus Clark, and they're all fun and games. I also listen to quite a bit of Americana. Some of the Old Crow Medicine Show and some of that style of genre, going through that. I used to listen to a lot of like rock and roll and a little bit of metal. It's hard to find. It's really interesting. Like there used to be like rock and roll radio stations, and now if you find a rock and roll radio station, at least where I live, it's all like oldies. So they're playing Rage Against the Machine. So they're playing all the stuff that I grew up listening to, which is fine. I like Rage Against the Machine still, but it's just kind of weird that there's not like a lot of new hard rock or anything that's going mainstream anymore. It's kind of seems to have fallen off to the wayside just a little bit. Sorry, getting a little parched. It's almost like I've been talking for 40 minutes straight. Cool. Dave, I'm so glad that you actually ordered that and sent it to your girlfriend. That game is amazing and fantastic. It's they have an expansion set too, so if you get the expansion set, it's pretty amazing. But I really like, I even like older music. So, if you listen to, I guess big band music like Glenn Miller is kind of like the precursor to modern day, rock and roll, so to speak. And then Bob Wills and his Texas Playboys are, kind of the Western swing movement was kind of the precursor to modern day country. And there's a cool band out of Austin called Sleep at the Wheel, and they like to tour around, and they will play basically old school Western swing. So they have like some of their own original tunes, some different tunes along the way that other people made, but they cover a lot of Bob Wills tunes, which is really cool to me because I'm just that weird kid that likes to listen to Bob Wills. I guess I'm just the weird dude that still does it. So, but I really like Western swing and that kind of genre of stuff. But that's all good. All right, see if there's any questions I might have missed. So you commented on venison being delicious, Dave, but you guys are super spoiled in Germany because I've gotten to eat most of the very common deer that y'all have, because something about hunting in Germany that's different than hunting in the U.S. is that as a hunter, if you go hunt somewhere and you shoot it, you don't actually own the meat. Even if you paid to go hunting on someone's land, you paid for basically the antlers and the guts, and that's all you get. And then if you want the meat, you actually have to buy the meat from the landowner. And the animals, if they're on your land, that animal belongs to the landowner. So in Texas, the animals belong to the state. So that's why you're buying tags through the state of Texas or wherever, and you're applying those to whatever game you kill. But there, all the animals belong to the landowners. And so it's a little bit different system. And you can actually, the landowners, because they can sell it to individuals, they can also sell it to businesses and everything else. And so that's kind of fun. But the roe deer that they have are like these little tiny deer that are walking around, and they are so delicious. I would argue that they taste better than whitetail deer here in Texas do. But I like whitetail deer just fine. But like those roe deer were really tender, delicious. Fallow deer is probably one of my favorite wild critters that was running around that I had in Germany. And then, of course, red deer are quite delicious as well. And you could get a lot of red deer in any myriad of dishes. One of the coolest things I had, though, was made out of some of the wild boar. They had a Wildsalmagen. And so Salmagen is kind of a specialty of the Pfalz area of Germany, or the Palatinate region, if you're speaking English. And it's like originally it translates, I think it translates literally to pig stomach. Salmagen, so pig stomach. But they would take traditionally they would take the stomach and they'd stuff it with like pig meat. I think there's some potatoes and some different things, and then you would like steep it in hot water, and that would cook the entire thing. And I know that sounds really gross, but you don't really eat the stomach. They peel that off. And I think more modern method would be you would put it in like a vacuum seal bag is what I did when I made it. But you'd put it in this vacuum seal bag, or you'd put it in this, just kind of plastic lining. And then you would, I used my water immersion circulator, my little sous vide wand, and I just kind of cooked it in that at a kind of a warm water bath temperature, just under boiling. I can't remember the temps. I'd have to go look it all up. But you could get field salmagen off of some of the places, and some of the stuff made out of wild boar was some of the best salmagen I had. And wild boar in Germany are different than feral pigs in America. For those of you listening at home, they are a native species of Germany. Actually, when you cut into them, the meat isn't like crazy white meat like it is with the feral pigs here. It's kind of more of a reddish tinge to it, so it's a little bit different, and it tastes different as well. So it's kind of a cool thing. And again, you would go to markets and you could just buy wild game meat at some of these different markets. I got the opportunity, because we live there and through the military, to get a hunting license, my Jagdschein, and I got to actually go hunting in a few places around Germany and in Poland. And so, I know a few terms of the Jagsprache. If people want to learn any Jagsprache, that's fine. But it's probably, just some of the interesting things is, usually if you're talking about doing a blood trail, I guess Jagsprache originated because they didn't want because the animals belonged to the landowners, to the nobles, to the rich people. And so if you were, I guess, more of a peasant that was hunting, you didn't want to let on, in public, that you were actually, hunting or doing anything. And so, if you're talking about a blood trail, you talk about der Schweiß, which literally means sweat. If you want to talk, but it's a blood trail. So you would think you would talk about Blut, but no, you're talking about Schweiß, which is kind of interesting. So, you'd use the de Teller, which is like a dish to talk about like the ears of a hare or something, a Hase. So lots of weird things with Jagsprache that you just had to know enough of it as an American not to get looked at sideways when you're talking about hunting in Germany. So, sorry if anyone gets offended by hunting. I'm not that sorry. And then Brad just put in, any country beyond the early 90s is just Nashville disco. Yep. That's part of the reason why I stick to my Texas country, is because it actually, a lot of it sounds, there's kind of two sections of Texas country. So there's kind of the Charlie Crockett's out there that sound like old school country. If you go listen to Charlie Crockett, he sounds, or William Beckman even too, like a lot of it sounds just like, old school country. Charlie Crockett, I can just listen to all day. It sounds like some song I know I've heard, but I haven't, because it's his. And then he does some cover songs too, which make you kind of reinforce that. So, but yeah, it's a little different. And then some of the other country bands are a little bit more rock and roll, and that's fine with me too. I don't mind a little bit more rock and roll as well. So, getting the Jagdschein is tough. Yes, Dave, it is a little bit, it's a little bit tough to get the Jagdschein. I guess because we were Americans there with the military, they have kind of a reduced length course. But here in Texas, to get your hunting license, you take like a online quiz, and then you go do like a 1-day thing, and nobody cares. Like, I guess they make sure you can load a pellet gun, and that's about it. In Germany, I had to go like pass a shooting test where I was sitting, standing, and unsupported prone at 100 meters with a rifle. I also had to like go shoot trap and then running rabbit as well in order to like pass my Jagdschein. So you had to go do like shooting qualifications on weekends and stuff. And it's pretty intense compared to what you have to do in Texas to get a hunting license. Here it's pretty simple comparatively. Okay. Is there any way to travel through Texas without a car? I want to come over to the States next March, April, and would love to see more than just one city. Also, some of the best barbecue places are outside of the big cities. So Texas without a car would be a little tough. If you want to travel city to city, you can always fly. You can always, there are buses. The public transportation system. So I know Dallas has like a light rail, which actually gets around pretty well. And then some, I think, does Houston have a light rail too? I can't remember. But most people in Texas are driving around in a car. If you can drive in Germany, you can probably drive in Texas. Just know that the Autobahn is a very lovely feel to it compared to here, because even though it seems aggressive if you've never driven on it before, it's like an organized kind of rule following aggressiveness, whereas here it's just aggressive and you have no idea what's going to happen. But once you get into town, I mean, you can always use Uber or Lyft. So I don't know if you have rideshare. I don't remember using rideshare anywhere in Deutschland. But so you just have an app and you put in, and they charge you some amount of money to go across town. But most of the time you'll fly into the airport, you'll rideshare to like a pretty central spot, and then downtown San Antonio or downtown Austin, and then you can either walk around. A lot of like downtowns now have like electric scooters that you can like rent, which is kind of a fun way to get around town. You download an app, and then you just basically pay money, and then they give you so much time on the scooter, and you can just go scoot over to wherever you want to go, and then electric scooter back. Or you can Uber and Lyft back if you had too much to drink and don't want to drive a scooter. So I would say though, yes, they have rideshare. Actually, that's a thing in Texas, ? Yes, we do. We definitely have rideshare. If you didn't have Uber and Lyft, I don't know. Like, in fact, I took a Lyft to my brewery thing the other day because I knew I was going to drink too much and didn't want to drive. So I was trying to be responsible about me being irresponsible. March and April would be a really great time. Springtime in Texas is really nice. It's not super hot yet. If you wait till end of April, early May, things get really, really warm. I don't know. The comment you made are some of the best barbecue places are outside of the big cities. I don't know. There are some really good barbecue places. So if you go to Austin, Franklin Barbecue, La Barbecue, Style Switch. There's several really good barbecue places kind of around downtown, and you might have to like take a ride share there or something, or take a electric scooter or walk there. But Aaron Franklin is pretty well downtown. I would say it's most of the breweries that are not in the center of cities somehow. They tend to go build off on the fringes of cities or a little bit outside. But yeah, barbecue places, there's several good ones now. Some of the kind of interesting ones, like if you go to Luling City Market, Luling, Texas is kind of in between San Antonio and Houston, kind of in the middle of nowhere. But some of those old city markets like Luling City Market, Giddings City Market, they are really cool places just to walk in and get barbecue, and they may not be considered like the top 50 or whatever in the state. But they are just cool places to walk in and see these more traditional city markets, because barbecue in Texas started out as a way to use the rest of a steer. So you get a whole steer and you'd have to butcher it down, and then you would sell what you could sell, and then now you're stuck with just like these bits of these bits of meat like brisket or clawed shoulder that you couldn't get rid of, and so you wind up just having to either throw it away or find ways to make it edible. And so it's funny that now, thanks to Packer Plant markets, you can just order 100 of briskets or 100 of the steak, and nobody thinks anything. But that's because we've gone from a more of a butcher based meat thing to a Packer Plant kind of society. And so it's kind of neat that you can do that. It's also made brisket used to be like this undesirable piece of meat that you could just buy for dirt cheap, and now it's just like all of a sudden everybody's after brisket, and it's the thing that's desired, I suppose. And so it's gotten really, really expensive to smoke some brisket. if you can list some places specific off that YouTube video, Dave, I can try to open it, but I don't really want to listen to it right now because it's yeah, that first picture is just Austin. So let me see if they list the places. Yeah, Fort Worth. You know, you could drive into Dallas Fort Worth. You could probably use light rail, public transit, some of the stuff. But they talk about Snow's Barbecue. Snow's Barbecue's in Lexington, Texas, which is south of College Station, I think, if memory serves. And it's not a real easy place to kind of get to on its own. And they're only open, like Snow's, I've only been there one time. It was really good barbecue. Tootsie is the pit master, and she's like this little old lady. I think she's like almost 90 years old now, and it's just like she's got this blonde, windswept hair, and she's just like this thing to marvel at. She's like local. She's a celebrity here as far as any of us are concerned, and so you have to get there before noon in order to. You have to get there before noon. Basically, I remember getting there at 8 o'clock in the morning, standing in the line, waiting for them to open, and we were eating barbecue at like 9 o'clock in the morning, and we were all happy to do it because otherwise you weren't going to get a chance to do it. So, but it's just a really cool place. I really liked it, but it's one of those things that too, it's like a bit of a challenge to get to. You got to get there early, and you got to kind of roll with it. Has Tri-Tip made it to Texas yet? I would have said probably, so there's this weird time in my life where my wife was in the Army, and I guess around 2006, left Texas and didn't really make it back until about, 7, 8, I guess it was 8, 9 years ago. And so before, 2005, 2006, I didn't even know what Tri-Tip was. We figured out what Tri-Tip was because we met some Californians that were in the military lifestyle, and they like to cook Tri-Tip, so they'd get it from the exchange. And so we would totally just go to the exchange and they would get Tri-Tip and cook it, and it would be really good. But nowadays, either just because more people have heard of it, or maybe because maybe because more people have heard it, maybe because it's just, more people from California have moved to Texas recently. Tri-Tip is around. I don't think you'll see it in too many markets, but Tri-Tip's kind of the same thing where it's just the end of a sirloin and nobody knows what to do with it. So they cook it and it has its own little thing. So yeah, Tri-Tip's, it's around. People talk about it. One place where they actually camp outside the shop for hours and then I have to get a table at 11 in the morning. Yeah, Franklin Barbecue is one of those places where you do have to get out there. If you do it right, you tailgate it. So we would have, the one time I did wait in line, our friend kind of got there earlier than us. She got there about 6 in the morning. And then we showed up probably about 8 or 9, and we brought a cooler full of beer. And so we sat there and just kind of drank beer until 11 o'clock and just treated it like a football tailgate party where you just sit out in the parking lot and drink beer before the game. Instead, we're just drinking beer before we get to the barbecue. And if you don't have beer that you bought to bring with you or a cooler, they have servers that come out at various intervals and they'll sell you beer right there. It's not cheap, but it's there. Yeah. So is that the lady that checks temperatures of the hands? Yes. Tootsie's the lady that she literally just walks by and puts her hand on the smoker and she knows about what it feels like. And you're just like, and it's pretty amazing. Oh, Snows. Yeah. They specifically talked about Snows in like the video description. I didn't get to pull up your whole video, obviously. But Snows Barbecue is really amazing. I would say Franklin Barbecue in Austin is probably one of the best bites of brisket I've ever had in my life. It's got to be up there in probably my top 5 at least of places that I've eaten. I've gone back there several times, and their quality is pretty consistent over time. And don't sleep on their pork ribs because their pork spare ribs are really good. And I would say if you do come to Texas, let me know. Maybe that if you come to San Antonio or stuff like that, we have a place here in San Antonio on the south side called 2M. And they make really excellent brisket. They make excellent beef ribs. But what really is pretty awesome about them, too, is they have these cool sides because they're total South Texas. And so they have like Mexican oletes. So it's just like corn with like cheese and mayonnaise and peppers and all the fixings. And it's like super, super good. And then they have they had like a Texas kimchi of all things. Like I don't know how you make a Texas kimchi, but they do like their own pickling of a lot of their own pickling with pickles. So I guess it's not that much of a leap to go over from fermentation to cabbage and some of those things. So it's really good. They have a mac and cheese, but it's covered with chicharron, and so the chicharron is it's like a pork skin, like a crispy pork skin, and so they'll kind of shred that up and put on top of the mac and cheese, which is kind of like a fun South Texas thing to do. And so their sides are really, really good. So definitely recommend checking out 2M if you're ever in this area. And there's a few other good barbecue spots in this area as well. There's also my backyard, which makes pretty good barbecue. I'm going to smoke some chicken leg quarters later today. We're going to have some friends over this evening. And so after this, I'm going to go probably get a smoker fired up and get ready to throw some chicken on there. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Cool. We're right at about an hour. So if anyone's got any more last minute questions they'd like to throw in here, just let me know. Happy to answer them. I think we've done a pretty good job of talking about beer festivals, but not really diving so much into beer. We talked a little bit about seltzer, so that was a fun little thing. One of the things I always wondered about with you is you pay $50 for delicious meat, and then you got to eat it with plastic forks and knives. I never understood that as a German. So there are places here too that won't even give you plates. Like they just expect you to eat off butcher paper. It's really pretty fantastic. So one of the first places I ever went to like that, there's Cooper's Barbecue in Llano, Texas. And they have a Cooper's in Austin now, a Cooper's in New Braunfels. I think the original Cooper's was in Mason, Texas, but the Cooper's in Llano split off from them because I think there was like a cousin feud or something, which is pretty common among Texas barbecue places for whatever reason. But Cooper's in Llano, I remember showing up. It was like the coolest experience because it's just like this series of pits outside, and you basically walk up to the pit closest to the door, and he's like, okay, well, I want some brisket. And the guy's like, cool. And then he just sets his knife down on this big chunk of brisket. It's like, how much? And it's like, well, a little more, a little less. And then he just cuts off a big slab and says, do you want sauce? You're like, sure. And there's this like brown vinegar based sauce thing off to the side, and he just dips this whole slab of meat in there and throws it on a cafeteria tray. So, all right, what else do you want? It's like, well, I want about 4 ribs. So it's like sauce, and like, sure. And so he'll take it and put in this brown sauce and just dip it and then throw it onto this tray. And, and so you wind up, if you can ask for poundage, and because they don't have a scale out there, they kind of guesstimate. So you can say you want a 1/4 pound. Sorry, Dave, they won't know anything about kilos. I'm pretty sure the metric system hasn't really made its way to Llano, Texas yet. Maybe next year. But it's but you get it in there, and like they go out there and they'll butcher it all up for you, and then they just wrap it in butcher paper, and then they, you kind of order some sides there so you can get mac and cheese or coleslaw or whatever you want. And then they just put you with your meat wrapped in butcher paper. You pay by the pound. It's kind of like going to a butcher shop, except everything is cooked. And so then you go sit down, and they'll give you a couple of extra pieces of butcher paper to use as plates, and you're lucky if you get a real fork. Most of the time, they just give you a plastic knife. But a kilo is 2.2 pounds exactly. So, so it's a really cool place, and so I think Franklin's kind of the same way. And you're paying, and $50 plus. Last time I took my family to Franklin, I think I spent over $100 because if you're going to these places and you're waiting in line and doing all this stuff, I'm going to order one of everything. Like, I don't care. Like, I don't normally eat pulled pork, but I waited in line for 4 hours, so I'm going to totally order one of everything that you have. And then if I have leftovers, so be it. I'll take them home and eat them later. So, but yeah, Franklin, you'll spend, I don't know, you can spend $50 just sneezing in that place, and you can easily spend $100 if you don't watch yourself. But it depends on what you're trying to do. But yeah, if I'm driving a place to try barbecue, and I've gone out of my way to like eat at this place, I'm going to order one of everything. I don't normally eat turkey. Actually the smoked turkey at Franklin Barbecue is really good. So 4 hours. I thought Germans love to wait in line. Yeah. So the hack for Franklin is if you know when you're going to be there, they actually have a to-go window. And so you can actually order Franklin to go. And so kind of my go-to for Franklin, I probably shouldn't say this out loud, is I like to order Franklin barbecue to go. And so you order all your sides, all your meat, and they'll basically, there's like a little truck off to the side of the restaurant. And so you go over to their little side truck and you basically check in. You have to have like an hour window or something that you check in. And so you're going to pick it up between 11 and noon. Cool. So I'll drive up from San Antonio. I'll go to their to-go window. They'll cut it up for me when I get there. They'll send you out. They'll give you like bread and stuff for free, sauce for free, all that stuff. And then I'll put it in like a little igloo cooler that doesn't have any ice in. I'm just using it to keep it warm. And then I'll drive over to Live Oak Brewing, which is about 15 minutes away. And since they don't serve food, you can eat food in the brewery. And so I'll just take my Franklin barbecue in there and I'll go drink some delicious lager and eat some delicious barbecue and probably have the best day of my life. So all right. Anything else, guys? Again, we're a little bit over an hour, but if y'all got questions, I'm happy to answer them. We know we got a few viewers on here right now. But definitely, that's the hack for Franklin, is to get it to go. That's definitely what I would say. So, but all right, cool. Well, I think we'll go ahead and end this here live stream. Thanks to everybody that came out. Thanks to all of our patrons of Brewlosophy. As Marshall says, we really can't do this without you. So I'm more than happy to come sit here for an hour and answer questions, because again, without all of your support, then we wouldn't have you guys. And no, Brad, I've not tried dry aging meat on my own time. It seems like a lot of work, so I haven't done it yet. Again, I'm pretty lazy. So, but that's a great question. So, but yeah, thanks again to everybody who supports us. Thanks again to all of our fans of Brewlosophy who just read articles and may get to hear about this in a podcast. We just, again, hopefully this is just something that's worth your while and worth your time, and hopefully y'all have enjoyed talking about barbecue and board games and football betting structures and festivals and whatever else we've talked about for this entire Patreon video chat. So you guys are awesome, and I'll catch up with you guys later. If you have anything specific for me you would like to answer, you can always hit me up, will@brewlosophy.com. Some of you know me from the Brew Club Discord, some of those places, and you can hit me up there as well. So anyways, have a good one, guys.
Huge thanks not only to Will for taking the time to do that session, but also to all of our amazing patrons who believe in and enjoy what we are doing enough to throw a few bucks our way so that we can continue doing it. I absolutely mean it when I say that we would not be here today if it weren't for our patrons. So if you're listening to this show now, you have them to thank for that. If you're interested in becoming a patron yourself, you can head over to patreon.com/Brewlosophy to view all of the rewards we offer for helping us out. And remember to head over to brewlosophy.com to stay current on everything we're up to. The Brewlosophy podcast is made possible by the generous support of our sponsors, as well as all of our rad listeners. We seriously could not do this without you. Cheers to everyone who has subscribed and left a review of our show. It makes a huge difference. If you haven't yet, please consider doing so. Head over to brewlosophy.com/support to view a list of ways you can easily help us to continue producing this podcast. If you want a reward for your support, visit patreon.com/Brewlosophy. Thanks again for listening. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Brewlosophy podcast. Until then, think beer.
Start off the morning with some hot tea, lemon and honey, cause it suits my bro. Put some herb in the bowl, yeah, it's homegrown. Ain't gotta go through the middleman no more. Life is good, the likelihood of me.
Imagine relying on a dozen different software programs to run your business, none of which are connected, and each one more expensive and more complicated than the last. It can be pretty stressful. Now, imagine Odoo. Odoo has all the programs you'll ever need, and they're all connected on one platform. Doesn't Odoo sound amazing? Let Odoo harmonize your business with simple, efficient software that can handle everything for a fraction of the price. Sign up today at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.